Tonight, from iRacing's virtual Talladega Super Speedway, we say good evening, sim racing fans, and welcome to round 8 of the 2022 Real Sim Racing Sim Speed Shop Winter Series. We're happy to have you with us live from Dega as you spend another RSR Monday night with us here on RaceSpotTV. As always, myself, Evan Pasoko, happy to be joined in the booth by Nolan Rempel. Our producer tonight is Connery Maddock, and Thomas George also going to be joining us in just a moment as our driver analyst. And Nolan, I'll go to you first. There's a lot of things to talk about coming into this evening. We know the challenges that Talladega is going to bring. A lot of drivers have been fearing this race. Liam Sheen was joking earlier today on Twitter that Vegas is the only good track left. I think Ross Cato was saying he's pretty scared to race on this racetrack tonight. And as that championship battle got a lot closer after last week, the stakes are higher than they've ever been.
Oh, absolutely. The stakes are certainly high, and if there is ever a track where you can never feel safe at any given point, Talladega Super Speedway is very much that track. They call it the biggest and baddest track on the NASCAR circuit for a reason. It is 2.6 miles of absolute terror at over 180 miles an hour. And I tell you what, we are in for one heck of a show here tonight if the race we had earlier this season at Daytona was anything to go by.
That one required a little bit of overtime. Tonight we should go racing for 75 laps. Maybe a little bit more in the tank as always. Let's talk about that championship picture. Of course, I mentioned that picture gets a little bit clearer as we come into this evening. And what Andrew Freenosh had to be doing through the middle portion of the season, Olin, was working really hard to build an advantage. But he had a connection issue last week at New Hampshire. By the time he was able to get back into that race, he lost multiple laps, and his lead has shrunk. He is now only 20 points ahead of Liam Sheen and 21 points ahead of Michael Araya. This is now very clearly a three-way battle for the championship, and because tonight's a plate track, because we got a kind of a barn burner coming up next week when we head to one of the feistiest short tracks on the service in Lucas Oil Raceway, this thing is wide open for Sheen and Araya to storm back into that top spot.
Especially with the fact that there are currently 38 cars present at the venue here tonight, Evan. And that, of course, means that if Andrew Freenosh is wrecked out early and finds himself finishing in anywhere within those bottom 10 drivers, even all the way down as far as 37th to 38th, he can not just lose the points lead, he could potentially find himself losing up to a 20-point gap in some cases, all the way back to Laura and Sheen, who are both ready to pounce here tonight.
And the team championship still dominated at the moment by Keep It Real Esports. They are 52 points ahead of Flat Out. We talked about how that battle is going to go down to the wire. The difference maker may end up being the fact that Keep It Real has had 21 starts count for their season points. Remember, the top 3 on each team each night count towards those team championships, meaning at some race this year, Flat Out didn't have a minimum of 3 cars in the field. That's a lot of points to give up. Without that one missing finish, we'd be talking about a difference of maybe 20 or 30 points, much more doable into the final week. So Keep It Real is definitely in control of the team championship with 3 weeks left to go. Of course, the trouble for Andrew Freenosh was not the only storyline, Nolan, to come in out of last week's race at New Hampshire. It was an exciting, a thrilling, and a controversial finish that saw contact on the very last lap of the race between Bradley Burke and Kevin King. Now, Kevin King was leading, dominating on the end of the run, but Bradley Burke started to close in. We know that both of those drivers are very good at saving tires in a long run. That is what the race came down to. However, it was the big lunge in turn 3 where Burke got into King, moved him out of the way. Bradley Burke would go on to take the race win. However, was later penalized for intentional wrecking. It's important to note that the way the wordage is in the RSR rulebook, Nolan, just because Kevin King didn't end up in the fence doesn't mean it's not, intentional wrecking, right? I mean, he was 5-6 car lengths behind, drove it in way deep, cleaned Kevin King out of the way. Race control determined that that was not a clean racing move. He was disqualified from the race results, and because of that, Kevin King was your race winner. Just wanted to get your thoughts on that, which has developed, of course, over the last week.
Harsh penalty, yes, but at the same time, a fair penalty. And sometimes you have to really crack down on this sort of thing, because if you don't, it sets the precedent. And at which point, it can really escalate at places like Martinsville, like Bristol, tracks where havoc is definitely a lot easier to come by. And I think it's also worth noting that while Bradley Burke was disqualified, he was not suspended from the series. That being said, he is still not present here tonight. So potentially taking some time off after that one. And I think that is honestly, it's been an interesting one, right? Because as we know, Dega is all about teamwork. And given the events that transpired after last week, I think it'd be hard pressed to find anybody to work with.
It has certainly been the talk of the town for sure. I think on our RSR Twitter page, a poll went up, but I think about 66% of people agreed with the call. Still, 1 out of every 3 people didn't like it. And in racing, you'll have judgment calls like that. And Bradley Burke does have the right to appeal any sort of post-race penalty. However, he chose not to appeal that penalty to the admin board, so that penalty stands. Again, disqualified only from the race results at New Hampshire. Doesn't affect his standing in any other way. He does have a 5-race probation. It's important to note, Nolan, because a new rule that was instituted last year in the Cup Series was that probations will roll over. So because he has decided to not race tonight, he will not lose one of those 5 probations off his record. He will still be on probation for the next 5 races he starts. It's the 3rd last race of the Winter Series, so those will carry into the start of the Cup Series. Just something else to note when it comes to those penalties. But that is not a part of the championship battle. It's great to see Kevin King find some more success. We went the first 5 weeks of this series with 5 different race winners, and then in the 2 weeks since then, we've seen Andrew Freenosh pick up a second race win, and now Kevin King pick up a second race win. Tonight, though, I think a great opportunity for somebody else to get in victory lane for the first time on this Winter Series campaign. That being said, qualifying has drawn to a close, and we've got a full house ready to do battle here tonight from Talladega. So let's go trackside and take a look at your SimSpeed Shop starting grid for the SimSpeed Shop 75. It is Dylan Parker on pole position this afternoon. His 54.083 is best of them all by a lot, and he will bring us to the green flag alongside Chris Rabel. Michael Johnson and Alexander Russell will make up row 2 with Tim Johnston and Alan Blanchino at his debut run for this 2022 campaign is in the top 6.
That will put Sean Casto down in 7th place, with Josh Ball rounded out row number 4, Brandon 6, and current points leader Andrew Freenosh rounded out your top 10. Shane Ewing and Ross Cato down on row number 6.
Been a while since we've seen Agnew Phillip on the racetrack. Competed for an RSR Cup Series championship in fall of last year. He starts 13th alongside Nick Morris, Sam Nieto, and Brian Chambliss, with Cody Harris and Jaron Weinmaster through row 9.
Michael Araya rounds out the top half of the field with Liam Sheen down in 20th place. Dane Cruz is 21st with Braden Whitaker 22nd. Trey Brown is 23rd with Dominic Howe in 24th.
We'll let the rest of the running order scroll on through. Also worth noting, a big welcome to the likes of Carson Bauer, Storm Patterson, Chad Lurdy, all also making their first starts of the season. And as we pace, we'll welcome in tonight's driver analyst, Thomas George, back into the booth. Thomas, thanks for joining us again. You're a driver. I mean, I'm sure you can appreciate the emotions and the concerns that we talked about from guys like Sheen and Cato and all these other guys, right? Especially those fighting for a championship. If you're Liam Sheen, right, you finally got closer. You finally put a dent at Andrew Freenosh's championship lead last week, and now you got to come to a place like Talladega. I mean, not the track I want to try to carry momentum into.
Thanks for having me back, and you're right, but I think in this scenario tonight, it's going to be one of Liam's best chances to actually do something that Andrew has done twice in this Winter Series so far. They have the same amount of top 5s with 5 and the same amount of top 10s with 6. But one of the main differences, Andrew's got 2 wins. Liam doesn't have any. And even his other rival, Michael Araya, has 1. So I know Liam's probably thinking points here. But if he's got a shot to win a race at anywhere, this is one of the best places. Not saying he can't win anywhere else, but this is a good place to make up some ground and sneak one out.
We also talk about the dynamics of those team championships, right? How many cars are on Keeping It Real? How many cars are on Flat Out Motorsports? Could that help out somebody like a Michael Araya with Flat Out, right? He and Sam Nieto both in the top 5 in points. They could use their teammates to help them in a race like this. Liam Sheen, Kind of a technical alliance with those guys. He's teammates with Kevin King at the team. They could also double up and try to get Liam Sheen into victory lane here this afternoon. The pace car going to dive down to the safety of the pit lane, and the field is in the hands of the number 3 Ford Mustang of Dylan Parker. We're happy that you're with us, spending your Monday night on RaceSpotTV as we say, let's go racing from Talladega. .38 cars strong, lap number 1 in the books, led by pole sitter Dylan Parker. He secures the first bonus point of the afternoon. Nolan, we saw some cars back in pack trying to make some 3 wide work, but for the most part, up front, drivers went to the bottom early, and now the 57 car of Alexander Russell challenging to the outside. He's got a big push by Josh Ball this time down the Alabama gangback straightaway and off and into turn 3.
And this is just like what we saw at Daytona right at season start for this winter series, right? That outside line is so much more prominent in these B-class cars than it is in the next-gen cars that we're going to be racing in the SimSeats Cup Series in a few weeks' time here. So that outside line can carry a lot more momentum. It is so much easier to go side by side, and that is why racing like this, such a breath of fresh air compared to the single-file race that we're so used to seeing nowadays with the Gen 7 and even the current Gen 6 cars as well. Alexander Russell clears for the race lead. He'll get a bonus point for leading the lap. That puts Parker down to second, and just on cue, Alexander Russell tucked back in the line, entering turn 1, leaving Josh Ball to head up the backstretch, and he's got Nicholas Marr to help him out on the top side.
Nick Kamara gained a lot of spots, started 14th. Liam Sheen started 20th. He's already in a top 10 position, and he's not even the biggest mover. That's Dominic Howe and Braden Whitaker, both plus 15. So I mentioned a lot of drivers wanted to go to the bottom early in this race. That was the advantage, is kind of bail on the top side while you're building up speed. And by the time we got to the end of lap number 1, drivers were already up at about 185 miles an hour at the stripe. This time you see they're at 180. So after one lap, you were almost all the way up to full speed. That's when that draft could really kick back in. One thing we didn't mention before the drop of the green flag, Thomas, the length of this race, right? 75 laps, 199.5 miles in this Sim Speed Shop 75 from Talladega. These Winter Series races always a little bit shorter than that of the Cup counterparts. We normally do about 94, I think it is here in the Cup cars, so it's not a huge difference, but definitely a shorter Talladega race.
Yeah, and it can play into a factor that a lot of these guys should be able to make it on one pit stop, even though they would be stretching the fuel tank quite a bit. And those guys that are running up front now that are taking all the air that's hitting them, they're going to get less fuel mileage out of those cars. But you're going to have guys also that going to the back. Andrew Freenosh thinking championship points, trying to stay out of the trouble. Started 10th. He's already in the back, maybe thinking fuel strategy. Liam Sheen, though, he's already started 20th. He's up to the top 10 already. He's trying to get as much position as he can. It's just going to be a varying sort of strategies going in between all these drivers. And who's going to work with who? You don't know when they're going to come to pit road. You don't know who's going to come to pit road with you. You're going to take 4 tires, no tires, 2 tires. It's just going to... I've always said it, and I'm going to be a broken record saying this. It's a high-speed game of chess at 190 miles an hour. And the first one to make the right move is going to win.
You can see a couple of cars twitching that time through the corner as you go on board with Chris Rabel, his number 29 Ford, third in line on the bottom, third on the racetrack because the outside line has gotten a little bit discombobulated. Josh Ball still leading the top side, pushed by Mara. Whitaker third in line up top, Howe fourth in line, and the two of Sam Nieto fifth up top. So again, the outside's definitely an option, but you do need to stay in sync with one another. I think most importantly, you also need strength in numbers. They're not going to be down for long. 4 cars clear to the inside of the racetrack to see anybody else go high. Somebody like a Rabel right here, he could decide to jump out of line, challenge for the race lead once that run on the outside comes, but he's pretty content. You talk about the fuel saving, you can hear him lifting on and off of the throttle. He's looking up to the 3 of Dylan Parker, who is in second, and then ahead of Parker is Alexander Russell, still leading. He's now led 3 laps total tonight, 3 different race leaders. In the opening 5 laps, Russell, Parker, and Ball have all secured a bonus point already.
I think that fuel saving that you just mentioned, Evan, is why we're not seeing too many drivers making really crazy moves at the moment. It's still just 2 trains with occasional swapping in between the different lines, and I have to say I kind of agree with that one. I mean, you have to make sure that you play it safe so you can be there in the long run, and at the moment when there is still 69 laps left to go, there is no point in trying to make it 3-4 wide to push your way to the front. You're not going to gain anything. You're probably going to be passed up there anyway with about 5 to 10 laps. So it's best to just stay in the back, let the guys in front of you do all the work.
Not the worst idea, right? Work smarter, not harder. And there's always different MOs. I mean, we talk about this every time we come to a plate track like this, Thomas. Do you hang back? Do you race up front? I mean, personally, I've seen drivers try all of it. I can't tell you that one works more than the other time, right? I mean, some drivers will play it smart, hang out at the back, and then at 10 to go, they say, all right, let's get up into the mix, and then 1 lap later, they're wrecked out. Other times, a guy will drive like a madman all race, up front, blocking lanes, leading laps, and he won't get involved in an incident at all and win this thing. I mean, it is hard to tame Talladega and figure out where that sweet spot is on strategy, because it's not as simple as doing one or the other.
And it's all about a driver's personality and what they think they should do to attack at a place like Daytona or Talladega. Famously, Dale Earnhardt Jr. and Jeff Gordon as teammates, you would think they would have worked well at Hendrick when they arrived together, but they both had contradicting takes to the race. Junior always wanted to go to the front. He always wanted to lead laps. Jeff, he was more wait, see it out. So you would end up seeing moments where Dale Jr. would work with a guy like Tony Stewart, who shared that same mentality of, let's go to the front. Let's control this race. Let's not let anybody else dictate how we're going to do things. And it's all just a matter of how you want to approach it. If you think, let's say you're Chris Rabel in third here, you think you can get to the front. If you've got that mentality of, okay, I could jump outside when I get a chance and go to the front, take the lead, and start controlling the race. But maybe if you're further back and you know you can't make any of those moves to get up there, then you have to figure out, okay, how do I get through the hole to get up there if I can? If I can't, I might as well lay back and wait it out. So it's just a matter of what the drivers think is the best for them at the time. And if they go into every race like that, that's just how it goes.
Inside still holding strong. Again, we haven't seen a ton of movement towards the front. Your first, I'd say, half a dozen or so cars on the inside and the outside staying. Then right on cue, here we go. Parker steps to the outside. He wants to go for the race lead. You saw a glimpse of 3 wide. That was the 44 of Michael Araya, an important driver. When we talk about in terms of this championship battle, he went to the outside line to drop back. He does not want to stay in this lead pack. You can see that chrome number 44 Chevrolet dropping backwards on the outside of the racetrack. And up front, Parker uses a push by Ball to leapfrog the 57 of Alexander Russell. And now Dylan Parker back in control off of 4.
So Josh Ball is going to continue to just tuck it in line here and rely on Nicholas Marr to push him up towards the front of this straight. Oh, again, almost getting into the 57 of Alexander Russell on the inside line. I think trying to maybe side draft a touch with the 57 car to drag the inside row back. It almost went wrong, though. And a hard shot to the back of the Dylan Parker from Russell will push the 3 and the 57 clear of Josh Ball as they hit turn number 1. But it's those little moments, Evan, that can definitely scare quite a few people. I think it might have some of the drivers in the back a bit concerned, particularly that of Casto and Phillip, who you can see started to drop to the back of the field.
Yeah, they definitely touched, and it was nothing intentional for Josh Ball. But listen, he was tired of being the pusher there when everybody else would jump up, and when Alexander Russell went topside there, the 6 car pushed the 57 and himself through. So just as quickly as Dylan Parker gained the race lead back, he loses it, and it's going to be a net loss of 1 because he drops now down to 3rd. Russell leads Ball now in 2nd spot. And with Lariah dropping back, your championship 3 drivers, right? Drivers top 3 in the points will be assumed most in this battle, right? I mean, Sam Nieto's 4th in the points, but that's a 48-point deficit to the race leader, right? Pretty substantial. It looks like a 3-horse race at this point. It is a very different tale of the tape when you depend on who we're talking about. Liam Sheen is up here in the mix as number 92 car is working on the bottom lane. He's the 6th car in line on the bottom, 8th on the racetrack at the moment. He's up in the top 10, but the other 2 drivers, including 3rd place Michael Araya and Andrew Freenash, your championship leader, are 32nd and 37th respectively. So Liam Sheen, the only of those top 3 in the points, guys, who's actually in the battle right now.
And as it stands right now, obviously we don't do a typical chase format anymore. There's no cutoff. It's a 10-race playoff format. As it stands right now, Liam Sheen, with the position that he's running, if the race were to end right now, of course it won't, he would be your points leader and by a sizable gap over Andrew Freenash. So it's one of those things with Talladega, you know you've got a wild card race going. You need to play the strategy correctly. Sorry if I'm stuttering a little bit. Liam Sheen, he's thinking, this is what I need to do. I need to be up in the top 10, maybe avoid any havoc behind me. But we just saw a couple of laps ago, we almost had a big one on the tri-oval for 2nd place. And in the closing laps, that's probably going to be a big wreck because everybody's going to be side drafting each other. They're going to be trying to get every inch of real estate they can get. Unless pit stops spread this field out, it's going to be a high risk, high reward type of day for everybody.
Yeah, I mean, that's how quickly it can happen, right? It's not like there was a big move happening. Ball just went a little bit low, tapped Russell. I think we were very fortunate that the 57 didn't get hooked in that instance and, didn't cause a giant pileup. But we race on with the 57 machine of Alexander Russell leading. I know we've been discussing the fuel. And again, take it with a grain of salt, but according to my time and in scoring, drivers right now won't be lap number 14. They have about 25 laps of fuel left. If they could do that, right, if that's a real number, they can get close to as high as 38 or 39 laps on a fuel. That would, Nolan, get us into a one-stop window that Thomas mentioned.
And of course, with these guys potentially being able to make it another 25 laps, that should make the fuel window pretty easy as well. Come in around the halfway mark, and you should be good to go from there to the end. But if that is the case, and there is only about 35, maybe 38 laps of fuel potentially left in these cars, that means if we have a late race caution and we find ourselves going into overtime, there is the potential that some drivers might not be so safe, particularly those that tend to come down a little bit earlier with the rest of their teams just to get out of the chaos when the rest of the mid-pack tries to come in at the same time.
Just watch it. I mean, even in the trial here, you can see all of that kind of horizontal movement, right? You really saw it there just because the yellow pops out on the 04 Braden Whitaker. That trial at Talladega doesn't count as a corner on the track map, but it might as well be one. And just as we mentioned, Whitaker, he's actually going to pull to the outside and take the Michael Araya line all the way to the back. He wants to drop it out of this battle. That trial has 16 degrees of banking, Thomas. That is more than most of the ovals on the calendar, right? I mean, it is very steep, and it's kind of funny how loose the car gets, especially on the very bottom lane in that tri-oval as well. It's certainly, I think, more treacherous than what we see at Daytona.
Yeah, and what a lot of people may not know about Talladega is, even though it looks smooth and even though it looks nice and crisp, there are little bumps in that tri-oval alone, not just around the track, but that tri-oval has a notorious bump just before the start-finish line that you see that's not normal for Talladega, the little GW reference there for you. And that little bump, if you hit it at the wrong spot, it can send your car up into the car on your outside. I've done it a couple of times over my time on iRacing, and just either it was due to setup or it was due to the bump hitting that splitter. Combine that with the 16 degrees of banking where it allows drivers to go 5 wide and still keep that momentum. It's crazy as it sounds, it may be one of the more dangerous corners that we actually have on the NASCAR schedule, even though it's not actually a corner. So a lot of moves can be made there, but a lot of races can be lost.
Here's a look at Ross Cato. I mentioned him before the drop of the green flag because he was one of the drivers who had mentioned earlier today on social media on the Fast Forward Esports account. He said, quote, "Talladega is tonight, and I'm scared." Tell you what, though, he doesn't look that nervous right now. Looks pretty calm, cool, and collected, but that is because he is running 38th of 38. You can see there's a bit of a gap in the pack of cars that he's with up to the rest of the cars. It's kind of a group of 4 or 5, if you will. There's him, Freenosh, Chambliss, Kamer, and then Agnell Phillip. And then once you get up into the low 30s and high 20s, everybody is still technically within touch of the lead pack alone. What we have seen, though, so many times in the past is when the group of cars that want to be at the very back is a small number, right? Only 4 or 5. So many times they fall too far off, right? 5 cars will not draft as good as 25 cars. They're going to be slower. They'll actually lose touch with the lead pack, drop 10 seconds back, right? You can't make those 10 seconds up. That's not what's happening with that back group, and I'm not surprised because there is a lot of talent in those bottom 5, and I think they're managing that gap very well.
And at the moment, being way in the back of the field is honestly a bit of a safer place to be for the time being, because if a big one does happen up in front, and we've seen it almost happen a couple of times already over the course of these first 19-20 laps or so, you're in the perfect position to avoid it, right? Because all you have to do is just slam the brakes and then just kind of pick your way through whoever's left. You don't have to worry about being run over from behind by somebody that's caught out and being unsighted.
Yeah, this is true, and listen, you're going to want to do everything you can to minimize risk. It's tough to do, might not make a huge overall impact, but anything you can do to minimize risk helps, and that's where, again, working with a large group of teammates can help you. Certainly having a live spotter can help you as well, Thomas. iRacing's automatic spotter is great. No type. There's a car to your outside, car to your inside. It's not going to tell you if there's runs and whatnot. And, maybe even if it's not having a dedicated spotter, I know some drivers do, or some drivers don't. There might also be a benefit to having all 4 of your teammates on the radio with you, right? And if you get a teammate up inside of the top 10, he can say, listen, guys, hey, second lane slowing down. Hey, checking up top, right? Almost serving as a spotter if all those drivers can communicate to give everybody else a better idea of what's happening throughout the field.
Yeah, and it also gives you an opportunity in iRacing especially to determine what your pitch strategy is going to be, so long as nobody's listening in if you're streaming or something along those lines. And we actually, I don't know if anybody remembers the old tandem days from 2011 with Daytona where drivers could actually communicate with each other before NASCAR banned that. I always thought that was a heck of a little feature that you could do, that you could switch over to a channel and you could have Jeff Gordon and Carl Edwards communicating, hey, you want a tandem, you want a draft? I always thought that would be a great thing to kind of bring back, as weird as that may sound. But having teammates definitely helps, and having a spotter helps too. But even if you have a teammate that's spotting for you, not necessarily racing with you, they have to be precise, because here it's literally paper thin. If you make a move and you tell your driver he's clear, he's going to make the move. He has to, because he thinks he's trusting you. I can make this move. I can go get the lead, especially with 5-10 laps to go. And spotters, I don't envy their position at this track, because their heart rates are probably going faster than the drivers themselves. So quite a challenge for them.
I think the one positive of being a spotter on the sim is it's very... I'm not going to say it's easy to tell where your car is, right? But you can just set up a camera to chase your car down the backstretch everywhere that goes on track, and you can give very precise updates, right? It's a lot easier, I think, than in real life using the binoculars and trying to see down the backstretch. Is he clear? Who's got the run? You can't see that positioning all that well. Certainly an advantage to the spotters on the sim is you can get any angle you could ever dream of, and could certainly help with those conversations as well. I mean, already past the 1/4 of the way through this sim speed shop at 75, 22 laps down, this time by 53 to go. So also past our first fuel run, starting to get into the conversation of when that pit window will open. Again, looking in the range of 38, 39, the magic number. Some drivers may push it all the way because they want that little bit of extra fuel for overtime, but in theory, you could hit as little as 37 in and still be within contention, I think, to be able to go the distance in this race on fuel. Also, it's good to know that nobody has had any major issues as well. Nolan, normally there's a car or two that have dropped off, right? I mean, we talked about how that group of 5 is lingering about 3.5 seconds off the pack, but that's the furthest car from your race leader. I mean, everybody, all 38 cars who qualified for this race started on the green flag and are in this lead group here. You can certainly see that that double file fades away once you get into the mid-20s, I think 27th position or so. Tom Morano, the first driver single file, and all these drivers are starting to string out a little bit behind him, mostly by design. So everybody playing this one relatively smart, I'd say, for the time being.
And of course, that's what you got to do. It was like you said earlier, work smart, not work hard. And of course, you have to always be thinking on your game here when you're at a track like this. You can never really have any moment where you can take a breath or just relax as you can and just settle into a rhythm at tracks like, say, the Vegases or the Kansases, right? I mean, you have to always be on top of things here, because if you make one move out of line, it's not like at one of those mile-and-a-half tracks, the more traditional tracks we're used to going to, you know, where you might bottle a corner, lose a spot or two, but you'll be fine from there. Hey, here, you door somebody, you're likely going to be taking about 15, 20 guys with you up to that number. So who knows what this race will be able to have for us. I mean, there still is a little bit of ways before we get to our first actual window for green flag pit stops. But the fact that you still have all 38 cars technically still in this lead pack is certainly something, and a lot of the guys further in the back are definitely working with each other, trying to get things easier. And I'm going to be honest, I'm looking at that outside line, and Nicholas Marr has been looking at that for a while, and I have to ask, do you think he's maybe just backed off the pace a little bit and is not necessarily pushed to actually go for the race lead, just continue to be pushed by Sam Nieto himself? Because with how big the runs were earlier on, you'd think he would have been able to clear by now for that race lead.
I mean, Nieto is certainly working hard to push him around, right? And I think there's two things in play here. One, I think Nick Mara would rather be drafted with his brother behind him, right? You can see those two kind of inverted paint schemes, the two green and orange cars, right? The first one, the 40, is Nick Mara. The third one in line to the top side, that's the number 23 of Matthew Mara, right? Teammates, brothers. They're probably trying to get together, and not that, Sam Nieto's caused issues. Two car is helping the 40 car stay up front, but I think that those two are trying to get linked up. So that may be part of it. But I think that you could probably get linked up if you could clear for the top spot and then have the 23 push the 2 out of the way, and then you guys could get there. Also, I've always found this interesting as well. Alexander Russell's been doing a very good job of holding the bottom, Thomas, right? We haven't seen a swap on the front row in a while. I just said that, so maybe it's going to happen here because Mara's got to run to the tri-oval. The 2 cars giving him a push. He's going to have to make it happen in the short chute. Clear to the inside. No more, though. The window is only open for a split second. Mara tucks in line. They'll have to try again. Anyways, I always thought that once you dive down to the bottom, you're kind of stuck, right? Because then, well, the next guy is going to cycle to the lead on the outside. He's probably going to get a big push and dive down on you. So there are some drivers that, will get a car length, 2 car lengths clear of the bottom lane when they're running up top, but just not want to go down because they would rather be in control of where those runs come from and stay on the outside, even if it doesn't mean lapping around lap after lap as the leader.
And it's also just a personal preference of what they want to do. Some people would prefer to be the leader because it's not necessarily impossible to pass on the outside, but when you have that, when you're that lead car and you're on the bottom and you've got the shorter way around, you control the race how it wants to go. Now, that's not to say that there might not be a Joey Logano out there that would try to throw blocks and keep the lead at all costs, but it's much harder to do it with these Xfinity cars. But you see the 40 on the outside. He's getting the push from the 2. If he could clear him, he could theoretically go ahead and go to the bottom. Maybe he doesn't want to. And the only thing I could say that be one of the biggest advantages on being on the bottom, though, I would always think, is let's say a wreck happens on the backstretch. You've got a lot more real estate to work with going to the bottom, whereas if you're on the top and the big one happens, you're at the mercy of basically the cars around you. If you're on the bottom, you have that ability to, say, go through the grass on the front stretch here, or you have the ability to go down the backstretch concrete and avoid the mess. If you're up top and somebody comes up into you, you've got nowhere to go. So there's pros and cons to running both the top and the bottom. Me personally, I prefer the top because I have more options to work with. But you just have to play the game as it comes to you.
But I agree with you. I mean, listen, I'm not a pro driver. I probably would struggle very greatly if I competed, in the RSR Cup Series or the Winter Series. I struggled enough in the IROC Series, right? But I've also definitely bought into that, right? I feel a little bit trapped sometimes on the outside, especially if I'm in the third lane where this run's coming from. Shane Ewing has got a group together. He's got Madatsi Major. You got Casto up there. You got the number 96 machine, the 70s up there as well. So Harry Grindle up and into the conversation. It can be a fast lane, but again, there are very limited options. If something happens, you have nowhere to go. There's a fence to your outside. There's a car underneath you. You just have to hope that there's space.
Oh, boy, here we go!
Oh, there it goes!
There it is!
Nieto gets turned. It is a huge wreck in 1 and 2. And after a clean start, the big one strikes at lap 30.
Well, you were just saying, Evan, about how if something happens, you're not left with a lot of places to go. And, well, how about the guy that jumped from the second lane to the top trying to go for the lead, being the one that was hooked by Matthew Mara? I don't think it was intentional by any stretch of the means, but you just go like that 1 inch out of line, and it can cost you heavily. I'm thinking at least 15, 20 cars collected in this one. That's what happens when you get a 3-wide big one right in front of the field like that.
And no more than 10 seconds earlier, the 2-car made that transition. Remember, he was the one in between the Mara brothers, made that transition to go to the outside. So Matthew Mara drafts up to his brother. I wonder if he had to lift a little bit, maybe, Thomas, so that when he lifted, the 07 might have got him, or if that car just pushed a little bit into the turn. But you could definitely see there, it was Mara up from the middle line, tagging Nieto, who, again, moments before decided to go up to the third lane. If he didn't make that decision, he would not have been in the incident.
And it could have been a number of things, like you said. It could have been that air push may have come into a factor, despite the fact that all these cars are more or less the same. It could have been he saw that he was going too fast to his brother, and he checked up and just misjudged, his outside. It's a chain reaction, accordion effect, all the cliches. It caused the big one, and for our top 3, they all got involved in it. It's heavy damage for the 92 of Liam Sheen, especially. That engine might be cooked. Andrew Freenosh has a little bit of front damage, and the 44 Michael Araya has some damage to the rear. So Talladega strikes again. It makes the championship battle all the more intense.
And it also messes up our fuel strategy because it is lap number 31. We are 44 laps from the end. And you can see everybody down from pit road. That should put us outside of the fuel window to get to the end of this race, meaning that we would need still more pit stops in addition to this exchange. But drivers coming down to the pit lane. Josh Ball missed his box. 6 cars going to have to back it on up. Drivers need to make sure they don't drive through more than 3 pit stalls on their way in or on their way out of their box for service. And if you're going to fill it all the way up with fuel, you basically got the time of the stopwatch to do 4 tires if you want. Looks like a lot of drivers going to go for the rights only. Race off of the pit lane, going to be a drag race. Is it Parker, who is one of the first cars off? It's Russell, Ewing, then Mara and Parker. So Alexander Russell wins that race off of pit road. And to Thomas's point, Nolan, I think we should try to get a look at those championship cars, right? Mention that they all have some damage. And that's going to be huge. Andrew Freenosh got some right rear damage and front end damage. You can see the number 88 machine just now leaving the pit box. The right rear damage came from when Ross Cato got into him under braking, trying to avoid the incident. And then, of course, the front end damage happened. Remember, they were way behind where this happened. Front end damage came when he when he drove, I should say, into a spinning Michael Kaczynski. So that's where Andrew Freenosh has some damage in this race. The 44 car of Michael Araya, right side and rear damage on the driver who entered tonight third in the championship. You can see him leaving pit road now. He actually got spun by Chad Lurdy after he tried to check up to avoid the incident. Laraya then spun, made contact with Cody Harris. That is where the right and rear end damage came from for him. And then Liam Sheen, the Brunani 2 car, may be the worst off at all of this, Nolan. He was the only driver who was up and fighting in the top 10. He was on the bottom when the incident happened, but when Matthew Ara came back down the hill, he got into Sheen, and then Sheen was unable to avoid the wreck, got tagged by Sam Nieto, and made hard contact with the wall. You saw he is still on pit road. So Sheen, I think, with the most severe damage, and probably equally minimal damage on the likes of Freenosh and Laraya, is big in this championship conversation, and Liam Sheen's going to have to get off pit road before he loses a lap here.
I find that honestly a little bit amazing about just how much of a snowball effect a wreck like that can have, right? I mean, you obviously expect, everybody in the immediate vicinity to pretty much be caught up in that, and Liam Sheen was definitely among those drivers. But then you had almost a second mini big one that happened way deep in the field as a result of people just checking up for the wreck. I mean, you mentioned it perfectly. Michael Araya was just checking up for the wreck that he saw taking place in front of him, and that stack-up effect as a result of that essentially collected another 7 cars in the whole wreck because of that, because that sent drivers behind scattering everywhere and into each other. That's where Freenosh got his damage from as well. So it is a bit incredible that something like that happens, and I think Matthew Mara, unsurprisingly, we mentioned taking responsibility for that incident. Of course, he is, I believe, potentially going to be down and out of this race as a result of that tremendous incident. So we'll see how this race will now play out, as currently doubling up behind the pace car. And Evan, I hate to say this, I'm only seeing about so far about 12 cars that are actually lined up in proper spots at the moment.
Well, I kept talking about how, great it was that 38 cars started this race and how, 38 of them were still all in touch. That is certainly not the case anymore. So a tough break there for these drivers. And again, a lot of them going to be limping, I think, to get to the end of this race for sure. Listen, it's funny because it's definitely an aerodynamically sensitive racetrack. But at the same time, if it's not awful, I think the draft's going to probably help some of these guys out, Thomas.
Yeah, we've seen it happen before, but at this point, I'm more concerned about what the fuel mileage is going to be like for these guys. There was a couple of guys that had no damage, like the 9 and the 18, a couple others along with the 29. Pace car's about to dip down to pit road. I'll make my point real quick. They topped off on fuel, so they may be thinking this goes green the rest of the way, but I don't know about that one. So they're playing the strategy. We'll see what happens.
And even with topping them off, you would need to go 42 laps to go the distance. It just seems like it's going to be too far. Maybe if there's another yellow, they can stay out and save a little bit of fuel. Pace car is off it in, though. Alexander Russell in control of the field. He'll wait to the restart box. Green flag flies. We are back underway with only about 8 cars actually lined up on the outside, because all the cars behind them won't get sorted into a double file restart procedure if you're coming off the pit lane after the one to go. So that goes to show you how many cars were down there getting repaired as we get back up to speed.
And so far, out of the 34 cars or so that are back on track now, Evan, I am only actually seeing about 9 that are completely unscathed, which just goes to, again, show the scale of the wreck that we just witnessed. But as they get back up to speed, Shane Ewing is looking to make a charge on the outside line, but it's not going to happen. Entering turn number 3, Russell manages to utilize the bank into the corner to get the run around the bottom side, pushed by Nicholas Mara. But how about this? Russell jumping to the high side, chopping across the bumper of Shane Ewing. Russell wants no part in this run for the lead, fading to the back, leaving Ewing to be pushed by Dylan Parker to the point.
Worth noting that he may try to link up maybe a little bit later on in this race with a teammate, but Alexander Russell had led the most laps in this race to that point. 28 laps were led. And by him pulling over, Shane Ewing going to score a bonus point for his first lap lead of the afternoon as he got in front last time by the start-finish line. But all the speeds up top. Dylan Parker now also dropping to the rear. The 3 car does not want to be up front. I wonder if that wreck has spooked a lot of these guys, Thomas, because cars who were not dropping back on the first run now very quickly getting out of the top 5.
I'm also wondering, you say that, but then you look at the back of the pack and they're racing 3 wide right now with all those damaged cars, so who knows what they're thinking. If I had to guess, the 57 to 3, maybe they planned this, because if we're going to go back to fuel mileage, that 6 car, who looks like he's about to take the lead here, cuts down. Yes, he does in front of Shane Ewing. We got a new leader. But those cars that are up front, they're the ones that are going to be, again, in that pocket of air. It's going to make the fuel mileage just a bit worse because they're not going to be cutting through the air like they want to. That 57 and the 3 that dropped back there, I'm wondering if they decided, you know what? Let's go ahead and save some fuel. Let's burp the throttle a little bit because we don't need to push the issue. See if we can save 42 laps. It's a heck of a gamble if they try that, but oh boy. Oh no. Oh, the 3's down below the apron. It's already getting dicey again.
It can get out of shape very easily, and you can see that there's a lot less coordination this time through. Last run we saw very defined, 2 runs on each other's door, everybody in control. This mid-pack, they're kind of 3 wide. There's like a group of 2 here, a group of 3 there. You got Cody Harris making passes on the outside, and right there on the bottom, the black and white Chevrolet there, that is Andrew Freenosh, now the highest running of your top 3 drivers in the championship. Funny how the tables turn after he was running lowest of all of them no more than 6 laps ago. So maybe a fortune turning for Freenosh again after having the bad luck at New Hampshire that cost him to lose some 22 points in the championship over Liam Sheed. Back towards the front, though, Storm Patterson in his 2022 RSR Winter Series debut is leading laps at Talladega. Carson Bowers as well, making his first start, running right now in 3rd position. That's second in line on the bottom for the Brani 6 Chevrolet. 5 more drivers were invited off of the waitlist, Nolan, to join for the last couple of weeks of the season. Obviously not able to compete for a championship, but wanted to get in here and get in some of the action because the Cup Series not that far around the corner, and any little bit of track time against the guys you'll race for a Title 4 over there, I think can help. So good to see some new faces in the mix as Josh Ball, pushed by the 48 of Jaron Winemaster now, goes to the race lead.
So Ball clears in front of Patterson, and now Carson Bowers looking to see what he can do from the inside line in his very black number 96 Chevrolet Camaro. The outside line starting to lose a bit of momentum, very discombobulated at the moment, headed up by Jaron Wymester, but it is only a real train of 3 with himself, Tim Johnston, as well as Bunatzi Major. Lap car up high. That is Ross Cato, one of the drivers that initially got kicked off in that huge one that took place earlier today. And you can still see other drivers making moves outside of pit road as well. How about Patterson wants to get back to the point, abandoning Josh Ball for the bottom side, goes up high, and Carson Bowers goes with him. They're going to clear now for the race lead.
You think that duo has gotten hooked up? I mean, they were working together previously, and as soon as that 63 wanted to go to the outside there, Bowers was ready to pounce on that opportunity and more than willing to help out. So Storm Patterson, the driver for Nebula Esports, getting a little bit of helping hand from Carson Bowers, driving for Carson Bowers Racing. We also saw Sean Kalis to get an invite tonight. We already mentioned Chad Lurdy, Alan Belancio, who is running a little bit on further down in the running order. We talked about Alan off at the top. But Balancino now down in 26th position. And also Michael Gregory was given an invite to compete here this afternoon. But I don't think he made it onto the grid in time to compete. So lots of drivers from the waitlist wanting to get a little bit of Winter Series action in. Because we are not that far away, as I mentioned, from the start of the 2022 Cup Series. We were talking about that just before we went on air. Feels like we just wrapped up the Cup Series title not that long ago. But the 2022 RealSimRacing Cup Series season starts technically in less than a month. Now, round 1's not till February 21st, but the Clash, February 7th. not that far away. We'll have that for you here, as always, on RaceSpotTV. Shane Ewing, though, trying to go for the counter punch. He wants to get back to the race lead, take this lead back over, but clearly not as in sync with the drivers behind him as the 63-96 duo are, and we may have ourselves a stalemate as this lead pack of 24 cars races down the backstretch.
As soon as you call a stalemate, Shane Ewing clears for the race lead and immediately jumps down in front of Storm Patterson.
Take a shot.
He didn't even wait till you were finished speaking. He was already doing it as you were saying that sentence. That is going to abandon Weimar on the top side, though. And you saw that caused the Extreme Performance Toyota Supra to lose a lot of ground immediately.
It just seems it's typical. You say one thing, the drivers immediately do the other thing. Even if they were listening to the broadcast to do it out of spite, they wouldn't have heard me say it yet. So it's just the universe that likes to have fun at my expense at times. But I will say, off of that restart, now past the halfway point. I know fuel is still a big question, but definitely in the second half of tonight's race. So as we see another big push that'll shove Patterson back to the race lead, let's take this opportunity to look through the field and take a look at our SimSpeed Shop midway race break. As they run now, it is Storm Patterson 1, Carson Bowers 2 in their season debuts. They run ahead of Shane Ewing in third. Josh Ball is fourth, and Jaron Weinmaster sits in fifth, with Nick Mara in sixth spot. Tim Johnson rides in seventh at the moment. He's ahead of Benazzi Major in eighth position. Braden Whitaker is ninth, and Brian Chambliss Nolan rounds out our top 10.
That puts Rabel down in 11th place for the time being. Brandon Six is 12th alongside Michael Johnson, who is alongside Trey Brown, with Dylan Parker on the inside row. William Schmidt is down in 16th place. Loraya with damage still in 17th, but I will say keeping up with this main field. Harris is 18th with Howe 19th, and Agnell Phillip running down to 20th spot for the time being.
And not a lot of cars behind there, still on the lead lap in this one. 21st position it goes to Alexander Russell with Freenosh, Connor Horn, Kyle Kamer, and Liam Sheen in 25th spot. You've also got the aforementioned Alan Ballacino in 26th, Chad Lurdy is 27th, and then that's it. A couple of drivers still in the race, one lap down, includes Dane Cruz in 28th position, Tom Morana in 29th, and Ross Cato in 30th.
And, of course, you got Mike Kuczynski still running on a bit of a no-man's land at the moment in 31st. Harold Grindle is a DNF down in 32nd, and he is joined to the likes of Sam Vieto, Nick Silver, Matthew Mara, along with Sean Casto, Dave Matson, and Chris Edwards, all marked as DNFs so far on the day from 32nd on back.
Look top to bottom at your SimSpeed Shop midway race break. SimSpeed Shop manufactures sim racing hardware that utilizes the best components available, as well as mixing in real-world components to their product to give you the most realistic racing experience possible. Customize your hardware and rig today by visiting simspeedshop.com for more information. Proud title sponsor of the 2022 RealSimRacing SimSpeed Shop Winter Series. Well, now watching the aggressive racing towards the front of the field. I mean, yeah, there is an extra bonus point on the line if you can lead the most laps, but it's not going to win Ewing, Patterson, Ball, or Bowers a championship. But you wouldn't know it the way they're racing against each other, Thomas. Not a lot of riding going on up front. These drivers are up here to race, and it's exactly what they're doing.
Yeah, I don't think that wreck scared anybody off. They want to see an opportunity to win. They want to take it. And Talladega presents that for a lot of guys. A lot of guys that you don't see running up front on a weekly basis, they're up there and they're fighting for a chance to win this race, because that's what this plate racing gives for everybody. Everybody has got that chance. It's essentially a faster version of IROC, if you will. And I don't know how any other way to put it. That's just what it is. It's a crapshoot. It's a gamble. You're throwing all your chips on red, and you're hoping you make the right moves to get through to the end and get that checker flag. And even then, you're not 100% safe where the start-finish line is.
Exactly the case, that we are inside of the final 30 laps now in this race from the Talladega Superspeedway. Of course, if you want to follow us on the road to this RSR Winter Series Championship, 2 more exciting weeks of racing action coming up for you. It all continues next Monday night when we go racing from the shortest of the tracks on the calendar, Lucas Oil Raceway will be under the lights at IRP. That's next Monday, January the 17th, the 9 o'clock Eastern start, as always, here on RaceSpotTV, and it'll all be decided in 2 weeks' time on the 24th for the virtual Las Vegas Motor Speedway. Also, a 9 o'clock Eastern time start, as to the race lead is Storm Patterson once again in front. But he and Bowers have gotten split up now. You got Shane Ewing in the middle, who will slice to the outside and split the difference. The 32 car wants to give Patterson no satisfaction. He'll go back to the outside, get a push. Not clear, though. And he's got to hit the eject button.
Now, the thing is, that is exactly what Patterson and Bowers have been doing every time somebody's been getting up in front of them, right? They've been hopping to the outside and immediately pushing their way back to the front. So Carson Bowers now linked up once again with Storm Patterson. Those guys definitely seem to be working together here at the moment, Evan, and that is absolutely crucial, right? You need to find your friends. Find the guys that are willing to work with you and the guys that you feel confident with. And I think it is safe to say that Patterson and Bowers, they both feel very confident together with some of the more aggressive moves they've been making to retake race leads within just one lap whenever they get passed up for it.
And it just makes you nervous because any one of those moves could have gone wrong, right? Ewing going to the outside could have clipped a nose. Him trying to come down on Patterson and then pulling up at the last moment could have been bad if the 6 ball had already gotten back to his outside. I mean, we're talking about a game of inches, Thomas, at 187 miles an hour.
Yeah, these two have been trading the race lead back like it's a heavyweight title fight. It's just... I'm not the biggest fan of plate racing, but I do love when drivers are going at it right now. You see the 6, he's pushing the 32. Is he going to clear him again? Yes, he will. Another lead change. Ewing and Storm Patterson do not want to give up the lead, and I wouldn't be surprised. Oh, boy. The outside's open again. Let's see if Storm goes to the outside. Oh!
Well, thought about it.
He tried. Man, they do not want to give up that lead. They want to take it back as soon as they lose it. You know what? I don't think we have to worry about fuel mileage, boys. I think we're going to see a caution here probably with 10 to go, because at the rate these guys are changing the lead, it's only a matter of time before one of them makes a mistake here.
Oh, and Shane Ewing is barking on the radio now with the 63 car. Storm Patterson saying you cannot do that in the corners. And the only reason that Ewing went to the outside is because Patterson was on his left rear in the turn. It loosened the 32 car up and Ewing pushed to the outside. Again, another crisis averted. Believe it or not, we have only seen 6 different cars lead laps so far in this race here this afternoon. The last time we were on a plate race in Daytona earlier this year, that race, Nolan, had 28 lead changes total. We've probably had 28 lead changes in the last 10 laps here alone.
I have to say, I think that last lap by was the first time I've ever seen a legitimate bump and run at Talladega and have it not wipe out 3/4 of the field in the process. Even once again getting pushed clear by Josh Ball, and Storm Patterson no doubt going to be looking eager to get that lead back quickly. This time not wanting to risk replicating the same move that he pulled 1 lap ago. So with 25 laps to go at this point, we're definitely going to be good to go to the end if these guys pit one more time, especially with fuel mileage, which we talked about this earlier, right, Evan? They still have to come down and make a pit stop. So this is not over. They have to come down and make that stop as Patterson jumps to the top side, and he'll go now for the race lead. Ball thought about cutting him off, though. No chance for the number 6 car. Now they're both going to clear for the lead, as it looks like Carson Bowers hung out to dry on the inside line.
I think Josh Ball tipped his hand a little bit there and tried to go underneath Patterson a little bit too early there. And instead, they'll both clear to the bottom lane, but Shane Ewing doesn't want to sit around. He goes back to the outside. How about Tim Johnston? We have not talked much about the 56. How about some love to Benazzi Major, the 82? He's been here since the restart. Not that far behind either. You've got the likes of Dane Cruz in the 33. That's a lapped car. but he's also been a factor by adding another car to the top that gives that top more momentum, more speed, and continues to make the outside line a viable option. So a lot of names we haven't talked a ton about here this afternoon playing a factor in the battle for the race lead right now. 26 cars of the 38 that started this race are on the lead lap. This lead pack is 23 deep. Look out, lap traffic. Gonna have to go to the outside. It was a bit of a late decision, and that is Liam Sheen. The 92 car has been lapped, and that is a huge blow for him in the championship after he got severe damage in that incident that happened, about 20 laps ago now.
It looks like the 96 of Carson Bauer, he wants to get back into this fight now. He almost wants to lead. He's got Shane Ewing with a fresh set of engines going. He's got clean air in front of him. Don't forget, the 56 and the 32, they are teammates, so they'll be looking to push each other, which may end up pushing 96, who looks like he might have the run there. 63 has the 6 pushing him. Now, does the 96 come down in front of the 63? Let's see. He's not quite there yet. 32 still pushing him out of 4. That outside line, they just keep trading this lead back and forth, and man, I just don't know how they haven't wrecked yet. I really do not know.
They're trying their best, and I'm with you. I don't know if the fuel mileage is going to matter. There are 22 laps to go in this race. They've probably only got about 17 laps of fuel left, so they are going to be short. I would expect drivers, you could come down now, get the fuel, be good to the end, but I would expect drivers to push it all the way to about 7-6 to go so that you only need to put a splash in the car. Take minimal time on the pit lane. That way you can get back out onto the racetrack and you give up the least. But I don't know if we're going to get that far because it may be more of a question of when, not if at this juncture.
And at the moment, Storm Patterson still just barely holding on to the race lead up in front, with Carson Bowers trying to charge around, but Ewing having a bit of a hard time trying to help that 96 car to the front. Looks like he'll try to link up with him here in the tri-oval. And with all of the swapping and swapping that's been going on here for this race lead, you have to wonder, sooner or later, someone is going to try a move, and they're not going to be quite clear enough, but they're going to try to force the issue, and that's where we're going to see everything kicking off. Bowers clears for the race lead, I believe, Evan, correct me if I'm wrong, for the first time all night long, so he gets we have another different race leader, I believe. Patterson now running second, and look at Ball trying to maybe scare him up to the outside line.
It was the first lap led for Carson Bauer. So yeah, 7 different drivers have now led laps here tonight from Talladega. There's just a lot of infighting, right? Everyone's mad at everybody. Everybody's driving aggressively right now. You're not making a lot of friends. The way that the cars up at the front of the field are driving right now. And listen, I guess that's if you don't care, you don't care. We talked off at the very top, Thomas, that I thought tonight was going to be a story about teams, right? Big groups of teammates lining up together. We just haven't really seen a ton of that.
Well, I think if they could do it, they would. I just think the cards fell where they were to where everybody just kind of had to find their spot. You've got Carson Bowers and Storm Patterson. They started 32nd and 33rd, respectively. Here they are up front leading the race. Talladega, you want to try and get with your teammates as best you can, or somebody that you do trust, but if it's not there, it's just not there. You can try it. Let's say the inside line is 30 cars strong, and you're by yourself on the outside. You're not going to be able to jump inside unless somebody really blows the engine up for you and lets you come down. And even then, you're going to kill the momentum. It's high-speed chess. It's going to be a broken record. I'm going to say it over and over again for the rest of my life, but that's what this racing is. High-speed chess. And you can start seeing it now where it looks like everybody's starting to maybe begin to form down to that bottom lane. The 32, the 56, and I believe the 33. We got to spin down the backstretch. It's a 9 car, I believe.
Dominic Howe may have made contact with Brian Chambliss, who is into the inside wall. Heavy damage, but it is only 1 car, so no caution. And we will stay green. Chambliss did indeed make contact after Dominic Howe, who was pushing him, just got into him off of turn number 2. We'll take a second look. There's kind of nothing happening here. And it just gets a little offset to the left. That is the slightest of touches certainly no intent on the half of Dominic Cow there, but that doesn't make Brian Chambliss feel any better, certainly, Nolan.
It certainly does not, and it's one of those little checkups that Brian Chambliss struggled with. I mean, Howe has got such a big run on him. Chambliss checks up just a tiny bit, and it's that left rear hook that we've seen time and time again, both in the sim and in the real world. It's unfortunate for Chambliss, but fortunate for everybody behind that wasn't the right rear hook into the outside wall.
He definitely went the right way, because if he went up the hill and got into the wall, I mean, it was going to be everybody else behind taken out. So an unfortunate break for Chambliss there. He drops way down the running order. He will stay on track, though. He's going to try to limp around for a little bit, hope for a quick yellow where he can then get repairs. I just still can't get over the turns that we've seen in the championship, with Sheen having gained a lot when Freenosh had a connection issue last week and then getting the most damage in the wreck here tonight. Michael Araya poised to maybe get himself from about 21 off of Freenosh in the championship to somewhere in the mid to high teens if their positions hold, but certainly Liam Sheen's championship hopes taking a big blow here this afternoon as we are now inside, this time through, of 17 laps to go from Talladega. Again, the bank's open. We'll see how long they want to wait and if they will go all the way to the end of this run to try to minimize that stop on pit road and go for the splash a little bit later on. You can definitely see things are tightening up front. We saw a lot of gaps about 10 laps ago, not anymore. You got, 15 cars on the bottom, and you got the other 12 or so up top. I mean, there's not a lot of spacing up front as Shane Ewing continues now to pace the field. He has led 8 laps thus far. He needs to lead 20 more to get to Alexander Russell's total of 28 laps led. There are not 28 laps left in this race, which means that Alexander Russell has secured the additional bonus point for the most laps led.
Yeah, Evan, and those pit stops, they're probably going to be coming in within the next 5 to 6 laps as the 56 now makes his way down in front of his teammate. That 32 has a cool engine with the air there. He'll be able to push his teammate now to hopefully leading a lap here for him. And once again, lead changes. I don't know how these guys are going to be able to get to the bottom here. I mean, it's going to be organized chaos when they get to pit road because the fuel window's coming up, and they're only going to need a couple of seconds to get to the end, maybe a little extra in the tank if we do get a what you call NASCAR overtime, a green-white checkered. And don't look now, but that 33, he's a lap down right now, Dane Cruz, but he is fighting for that lucky dog if a wreck were to happen behind him and he doesn't get any incidents. So just because you're a lap down doesn't mean you're out of this. You can help just about anybody here, even if you are behind the pace a little bit. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, interestingly enough, for Dane Cruz, his last lap, he was actually ahead of Tim Johnston. The person who cares about that is Tom Morano. So if Dane Cruz is ahead of the leader when we get a yellow, if we get a yellow, he'll technically not be a lap down, right? So he'll, of course, stay on the lead lap. That would then give Tom Morano the lucky dog position. Of course, if it were to happen right now, Tim Johnston barely ahead of Dane Cruz, then Cruz is a lapped car. He will be the lucky dog, which means that Tom Morano will not get that wave around. So there are implications for other drivers in the field based on what happens with Cruz up and in the mix here, fighting for the leaders. If I was Dylan Parker, though, I would be very hesitant to push that 33 a lot. There's pretty substantial right rear damage on the back bumper of Cruz there, and it could make pushing him awfully difficult, but he just had enough room to slide down in front of Johnston, and now Cruz, the lapped car, has unlapped himself for the time being. Good news for Morano, but I'm expecting Dylan Parker now wants to get ahead of him.
And just like that, not even one corner later, and Cruz could find himself a lap down yet again, which is, well, I guess it doesn't necessarily matter so much to Dane Cruz because he would be the lucky dog driver regardless. And again, only matters to Tom Morano. Whoa, how about this? Dylan Parker bailing out to the top side and fading back. I did not expect to see this from the number 3 Mustang. And I have to wonder, Evan, does this mean he's thinking about potentially coming on into pit?
You will see. What does Dylan Parker do? A very interesting decision to buy that 3 car to give up the track position. I thought he wanted to go to the race lead, and honestly, if you're the lead car on the top, you could probably get down to the bottom. The guys I'm more worried about are mid-pack up top. Laraya, Morano, Cato. If there's a car under them, they're not going to be able to pit. Those are the guys that I would be less surprised about dropping to the back.
Yep, and you're mentioning Lariah. As we're going 3 wide now, this could get very hairy very quickly. Lariah right now, he is running 8th as they run. Andrew Freenosh, he's running 19th. That is an 11-point swing in that championship right now. So if you're in his position or any other of the mid-pack drivers right now, you have to be thinking, what do I do here? Do I find a way to get to pit road? Do I let first group of cars go first and then come by next time so I maybe have a little bit safer entrance? It's just an interesting gambit here as we got the 66 car, Brandon 6. He's now up to the lead. Oh, we got another one. Here we go.
The whole
Oh,
field involved at the front, and it involved Dane Cruz. We talked about how critical that role for the lap-down car would be, and he was an innocent victim after the 96 of Bowers is the one who got turned. The replay will show you it was Bowers and the 63 car behind him of Storm Patterson drafting like they had done for most of the second half of this race. But when Patterson wanted to come down to the bottom, he just hesitated a little bit. And once he did, contact with the number 40 machine, Nick Mara.
Good grief, the 33 up on his side. Same with one of the Mara brothers as well, down low. So a couple of drivers almost flipping over. And the critical thing about Dane Cruz being involved in this is obviously by default, that means Cruz is no longer eligible for the lucky dog. Does that hand it then to Tom Morano, Evan?
I believe Morano at the stripe is being scored as the lucky dog, and the question would then be, would they give it to Tom? Because watch the incident. There's Tom's 42. He made contact, and iRacing will tend to not give you the lucky dog if you were involved in the incident. I'm sure he got an incident point at least, right? A 2 or a 4X for being involved. So it'll be tough to tell which of those 6 drivers trapped 1 lap down will actually get the wave by. Let's take a look with Andrew Freenosh. He was on the bottom there when the incident happened. He slowed it way down, basically coming to a stop to avoid that one. That is a successful wreck avoidance for Andrew Freenosh. What happened with Michael Lariah, the other of the championship drivers who was outrunning Freenosh at the time? Very different story. Michael Lariah was poised to gain spots in the championship. He was in the middle of a 3 wide and is heavily, heavily damaged. So everybody comes down to the pit lane. This will give them the fuel they need to go the distance. A couple of cars stay out. Dylan Parker may be the first driver off of pit road. We'll see as he cycles back off. It's actually going to be Dominic Howe, first driver off of the pit lane. Good on fuel, but how about 6, Ball, Horn, Phillip, and Russell all staying out? They're going to need to save a lot of fuel under this yellow.
Evan, I got to question this strategy of staying out. Unless they are that confident and are 100% sure they can make it on fuel, that is a bold strategy. And even if they do make it on fuel, some of these guys have some damage that may limit their ability to be in the draft or at least lead the draft. I think you're going to have some guys, they're going to be going as hard as they can now. It's a questionable strategy for me. I would have pitted and made sure I had enough to get to the end, because you can march your way to the front in less than a lap here if you play the cards right. So I don't get this one. This is it's a head scratcher.
They're going to have to clutch and coast and try their very best to get to the end. I just feel like with the incident happening, why not just pit Nolan? I mean, there's not a ton of cars that, are in great racing condition anyways. It just seems like maybe I can understand the gamble in some other situations. I just don't know if it makes sense right now. But
Well, I mean, you'd think even with clutch and coasting, right? You're at the end of the fuel run. We were just talking about this earlier about how the fuel run was, where you're thinking around 35, maybe 38 laps or so. They've been out there for 33, and you have 9 to go. Even if you run the whole rest of this race under caution, no way are you making it back to the line in the checkered flag on the 1 tank of fuel you still got in there.
it's just tricky. And, of course, not to be overshadowed, but as I mentioned before the pit stops, guys, Andrew Freenosh has really gotten lucky here tonight. After the bad luck at New Hampshire, was getting outrun by Liam Sheen. Liam Sheen would was heavily involved. I mean, all three of your championship leaders were in the first wreck, right? But certainly Liam Sheen got the worst of it. Michael Araya was outrunning Andrew Freenosh on the most recent run. If we could get a quick look at what the 44 looks like now, Michael Araya heavily damaged now in the second incident. He has no front bumper, no hood, no rear bumper. There he is. He's the second car in line. I mean, Araya is destroyed. The only big difference is somehow Araya is still being scored on the lead lap and Freenosh is being scored a lap down, which I find interesting because, of course, Freenosh didn't get any additional damage in the last wreck. Araya did. So we'll have to wait for a scoring update just to make sure that's 100% accurate, but certainly minimizing the damage that it would have been because Araya was poised to gain a lot of points, and it's going to be awfully difficult for him to do that with the shape that car is in.
Yeah, Evan, this is it doesn't we always called Talladega a wild card. Well, it's not been a wild card for the points battle. It looks like it's going to more or less come out very even here as the lights are off on the pace car. You see that 57, he is on the apron there, coasting as much as he can, trying to save as much fuel as he can. No, it's not the 57, it's the 67. My apologies. I mean, Andrew right now, he's gotten away with some of the stuff. As you see, a 66 doing the same thing, clutching the car, going down below the yellow line, trying to save fuel. Oh, man. Unless they're banking on another caution coming out, I don't know. This is...
Always a gamble.
Yeah, I got nothing for it. I'm sorry. I'm trying to give you something for entertainment, but I just don't get this. But I'm not driving, so I don't know what's going on with these.
See how it shakes out. I mean, they're still on the apron, a lot of them trying to save fuel. Again, your cars 6th on back are good on fuel to the end of the race. It's the top 5. 6, Ball, Horn, Phillip, and Russell, who would seemingly still be about 3 laps shy on fuel, maybe needing another caution flag. Pace car down and in. 8 laps to go from Talladega this time through. Brandon 6, the control car, can start it when he wants. For the inside of the front row, 23 cars still on the lead lap. Green flag flies.
23 cars on the lead lap, and among them, Andrew Freenosh is not. And as a matter of fact, as they go 3 wide for the lead, he'll be out of the race entirely because he money shifted under the caution period. So that is why he is on pit road. So huge championship implications there. So all top 3 cars have been involved. 2 of them are effectively out of this race, except Araya still on track and on the lead lap, and trying to find out where Liam Sheen is at the moment, because this could be huge for him as well.
Yeah, Sheen's limping around. I mean, we talk about the fortunes in favor of Freenosh. That is not a mistake, Nolan and Thomas, that Andrew makes. I mean, Andrew is not a guy to make a mistake like that, and he had everything go right for him. Araya wrecked out, Sheen wrecked out heavily, and he threw it away there as we are 3 wide for the race lead. Russell on the outside. It's Connor Horn through the middle. Where did he come from?
Connor Horn just been laying around waiting to make his move. As you see the 67 and 66 side by side, dead heat, gaining a push from the 94 and the 32. Third on back is 3 wide as they're trying to find any real estate they can get into. They're as close as they can possibly be without wrecking, but I don't know if they're going to be able to hold on to this. I just don't think it's going to happen. There's got to be another yellow coming the way they're going right now.
Clear to the inside, he steps down, Connor Horn leads the bottom. Now, here comes Agnew, Phillip, he'll lead through the middle lane, Josh Ball pushing him. Your top 12 cars separated by less than 0.2 of a second. They're going to have to make it a whole more 6 times around. This time through, they hold steady. Here comes Russell with a big head of steam, pushed by Chris Rabel on the outside, but can't clear the middle just yet.
Oh, Josh Ball is wiggling around so much in that middle line there, and it is starting to really make me nervous. They're starting to pinch him in right down to the apron. Alexander Russell with the charge on the outside line. The big point about this is so far, still your top 5 all have not come down to pit, save for Chris Rabel at the moment. So we don't know if they're safe to the end on fuel. It is a very big question mark, and if even one of those drivers so much as sputters up here, Evan, it is going to cause complete calamity.
And if I'm one of the drivers who I know is good on fuel, right, if I just pitted, I need to know from my team who is in trouble, but they all are! There it is! Brandon 6 gets hooked! Caution! Shy of 5 laps to go. And we will re-rack them, re-stack them, and try it all again. Rabel, I believe, just stuck his nose out to get a little bit of clean air and chopped off Dominic Howe. Watch that all-white number 86 with the red numbers in the middle. Rabel's going to come down. Yeah, right there, just a little bit. And it was enough to send the 86 down into Ewing and Company.
Yep, it was the big one was coming there, Evan. We just didn't know, well, one of the big ones, maybe the little one in this case. We weren't sure where it was going to come, but we talked about it earlier. That tri-oval may be the most dangerous place in Talladega. And now the question is going to become, can the 67 and the 6 who did not pit, can they still save even more fuel and maybe make this gamble work out for them? Because they're still sitting up there. They haven't pitted yet, and I don't know if there's going to be another wreck. There might be another one at this rate, so... Oh, wait, it looks like the 67 might be sputtering.
Just look at what happened with Jaron Winemaster with his lockup and headed up to the outside wall. And I think this was really the only scenario, Nolan, where those cars who stayed out could have made it to the end, right? The problem is they really want this to end in regulation, right? If it can end in regulation, then that gives them their best chance. But we would need to be getting, pretty close to the restart procedure already. When iRacing added overtime finishes in, of course, it meant that normally, if we got a yellow inside of 4 to go, 5 to go, the race was done, right? They could pace to the end. If this gets extended to overtime, they're going to have to go that much further until they can, of course, restart this race. You're burning about a half a lap of fuel less under yellow than you would under green. So it's able to extend it a little bit, but they really, right now we're working lap 72. They really need this race to restart in regulation, and it looks like that it may end up getting extended for overtime. We're going to have to find out. We'll find out when the lights go out on top of the pace car. So this was the only situation for Philip Russell, Ball and Horn. Of course, Brandon Six was the other driver who stayed out, but he was involved in the accident. I mean, this was really the only situation where they could have done it, and at least they're going to get a crack at it, Nolan, but it still may not pay out.
One driver that did bail out from that strategy was Brandon Six. He opted not to want to stay out all the way to the end. But that being said, Brandon Six, I believe, did get collected in that wreck as well. As a matter of fact, he did. So he's likely more just down into pit road to get damage fixed, realizing he was not going to be able to be competitive otherwise for the end of this race. So your top 4 are all still staying out. You can see them working really hard to try to keep themselves with as much fuel saving as possible. And it is worth noting that if we were to finish this in regulation time, we would already have to be 2 to green. Now, Talladega cautions sometimes can be a little bit shorter than what you see on a mile and a half. Usually they are only, maybe 3 laps, 4 if there are cars that are significant laps down still out there as well running on the track, right? You rarely ever see a caution at Talladega go to 5 laps or more. So the possibility is very much there that this race still finishes under regulation time. We'll have to find out in about, I'd say, maybe 40 seconds or so when the pace car crosses the line. But despite that, I am still nervous because I still am a firm believer that those cars are not going to be able to make it to the end of this race. They've been saving as much fuel as they can, but the last time we saw cars coming down, or at least those 4 come down, was before the halfway point. And with how long they've been running out there, I don't see it happening.
I still also just can't get over the fact that, Andrew Freenosh, blew up the engine on money shifting. I mean, it was looking like that, he was hanging it back and with the issues to Sheen and to Lariah, and then all of a sudden, Freenosh seemingly was going to be in control, blew the engine, had to tow to the pit lane, and has not gone on track since. So even damaged Liam Sheen is ahead of him. So let's try to do a little bit of math, Nolan. Not my strong suit as we get set for a restart in this race, because good news is the lights have gone out on top of the pace car, so we will go to overtime technically. However, Oh, no, we're not. We're going to stay in regulation. We do get it in. So we're going to restart. Lap 74 will be 2 to go. So we will get our 2 to go in regulation. Just talking about a championship, though. Liam Sheen is 4 points ahead of Freenosh, so he will probably close the gap from 20 to 16. Michael Araya is 12 ahead of Freenosh. He may close the gap down from 21 to lower, as there's a wreck on the apron behind our leaders. That was Manazzi Major's 82 car. Major and Tom Morano got together. So this wacky race just rolls on. Moral of the story is the championship lead likely to be tighter headed into next week than it was coming into this evening. We still don't know if the 4 cars on the front 2 rows can even make it to the end of this race. And a checkered flag is on the line.
And I thought we had seen it all tonight. Are we sure we're not in Las Vegas? Because I feel like every lap is a gamble right now. And, oh, man, that fuel mileage, though. Can these guys make it on fuel? Can they make it back to the white before we're going to get a green-white checkered? I mean, I'm speechless, guys. I'm sorry. This is just too good. And by
the way, this is green-white checkered number attempt 1. We still may have more to come. It's Dago. Who knows, right?
Tune in, everybody. It's going to be a good one.
It's the natural one, too.
Exactly. So we get as many as 3 more. Exactly. It's kind of a free green to white checker, if you will. Pace car is in this time. 2 laps left to go for the virtual Talladega Superspeedway at round number 8 of the RealSimRacing Sim Speed Shop Winter Series. Your top 4 cars haven't pitted in 41 laps. Can they make it to the end on fuel? It is Agnew Phillip and Alexander Russell on the front row. Green flag back in the air. 2 laps to go.
2 laps to go, and it is going to be the most anticipated 2 laps, I'd imagine, in RSR for quite a while. Phillip, Russell, Horn, and Ball all not safe on fuel. All of them have been saving like their lives depended on it under these caution periods, and now we'll see if all of that can play off. Cody Harris, the first car with enough fuel to make it to the end, to the top side, but Horn and Russell clear for the race lead, and they're down to the bottom side, abandoning Harris on the top end. Chris Rabel now second in line for the outside line, trying to push him around to get to that white flag.
Here comes Agnew Phillip in third. Does he go to the outside if Cody Harris gets a run, or will he hold true on the bottom? No, he goes high. So the Naughty 4 car wants the outside to get cooking. Russell and Horn going to hold the bottom. Here comes support. Cody Harris pushed by Rabel, get up to Agnew Phillip. They're side by side at the white flag.
Can they make it back around? Do those cars that did not pit, do they have enough fuel? Can the 29, the 28, the 18, the 56, anybody that's back there that's good to go on fuel, can they make a move to get in front of them so they don't run them over? 3 wide as they go down the backstretch, almost home.
Rabel wants to push. He's going to link up with the 18 to Trey Browning. 3 low, 2 mid, 2 high. Who comes out on top into the final set of corners? Alexander Russell, still with the best positioning on the bottom. Connor Horn pushes him, but will the 67 stay loyal? No. Horn looks high. Russell blocks. Horn back down to the inside. Tries to get underneath, but Alexander Russell tries again. Phillip to the line. 3
94! I think the 94!
Phillip, he's done it!
Wow!
4 1/1000ths of a second. Agnew Phillip has stolen the win at Talladega.
Who would have thunk it? 4,000ths? And I have to say, I have been 100% proven wrong. The most god tier of fuel calls I've ever seen in the 3 years that I have been covering races on RaceSpotTV nets Phillip a race win in probably some of the most extraordinary circumstances I've seen in my life.
The drivers who finished first, second, third, and fourth were all 4 of the drivers who stayed out and did not pit. Both Phillip and Horn going 43 laps on fuel. Russell and Ball going 44. And it looked like Russell had it. Coming out of the trial, well, Thomas, you mentioned earlier the positioning of that start-finish line. Connor Horn looked high. He blocked it. Horn looked low. He shut the door. But it was that last second surge by Agnew Phillip, pinched onto the fence to steal the win. What an incredible finish.
How did he do all three of those things? I'll never guess. How did he save enough fuel to do that? How did he make that move in the trial? And how did he win by 4/1000ths of a second? He's even got enough fuel to do burnouts. Oh, man, that cliche again. The start-finish line doesn't end in the start. It's not in the middle of the trial. It's just outside of the trial, and that's all that Phillip needed to get the win as he's doing donuts in the grass with enough fuel. Somebody check that man's gas tank. I don't believe this. This has got to go to inspection.
He was so far back, and again, knew that he was going to be a threat, right? But he just didn't get the help he needed down the back straightaway. The top two cleared, and at one point he was as low, I think, as fourth position. I think Josh Ball had a nose in front of him at one point. I mean, I know Phillip was fourth out of four, and then right here gets that one huge shove from Cody Harris, and credit where it's due, Alexander Russell keeps it clean. I mean, he only got ahead maybe 4 feet before that start-finish line. Russell could have fenced him, Nolan. He didn't, and kept it clean to give us one of the most memorable finishes in a long time in Real Sim Racing.
I have to say, I think that has got to be some of the most aggressive, yet some of the most respectful racing I think you will ever see at any plate track amongst your top three. I mean, that is hard blocking, but at the end of the day, all kept clean, not a single piece of contact. And you mentioned 4 feet. I don't even think it was that. Possibly 3 or even 2 feet separated them at the line. And like I said, just absolutely unbelievable stuff.
Let's take a look at your Sim Speed Shop full race results tonight from Talladega. Again, the final margin of victory, 4/1000ths of a second. Agnew Phillip is once again in RSR victory lane. He comes home ahead of Alexander Russell in second and Connor Horn in third. We will try to get a word with all of those drivers in just a moment. Josh Ball also on the fuel call. Comes home at a 4 tonight ahead of Cody Harris, who rounds out the top 5 with William Schmidt, Ross Cato, Chris Rabel, Trey Browning, and Tim Johnston, your top 10.
Of course, in 11th place, that will hold Brian Chambliss, Dylan Parker with Kyle Kamer in 13th, Shane Ewing down in 14th. You got Y-Master 15th from there, and it's Dominic Howe, Michael Johnson, Brandon Six, Minazzi Major, along with Alan Ballacino to round out your top 20.
Continuing on down through 21st position goes to Michael Araya. That is the highest of your top 3 championship finishers. He will gain in the title fight. We'll talk about that a little bit later on. He finishes ahead of Nick Marr, Braden Whitaker, and Storm Patterson, the last cars who finish on the lead lap. 1 lap down is Chad Lurdy. So is Liam Sheen in 26th. That's big for him. Andrew Freenosh is 29th. That's also big in the championship. And look at all the names that didn't go the distance. Several drivers involved in incidents over the course of the night. So look top to bottom at your Sim Speed Shop full race results. Sim Speed Shop manufactures sim racing hardware that utilizes the best components available, as well as mixing in real-world components to their products to give you the most realistic racing experience possible. Customize your hardware and rig today by visiting simspeedshop.com for more information. Proud title sponsor of the 2022 Real Sim Racing Sim Speed Shop Winter Series. Let's head down to Talladega Super Speedway Victory Lane, where we are standing by with the driver of the number 94 machine. Agnew Phillip is back at RSR Victory Lane at Agnew. I'm sure you couldn't have come up with a more dramatic way to do it than that. Tell us about it by 4/1000ths of a second.
Oh man, that just completely unexpected. I haven't been around for the last couple of months. I've taken the last couple of months off. I literally just got back to my rig today, and I was like, "Oh, there's a RSR race at Talladega. I can do that. That you don't have to do a ton of practice for that." So I thought I'd hop in and see what happened. And at that last restart was just I didn't really know what the right move was there. I knew that Alexander and Connor were going to have a huge run because Josh behind me had a bit of damage. And they did, and they got around me, and then you know, I then I had Cody behind me, and he had a little bit of damage too. So I just didn't know if I was going to have enough of a run, and it almost didn't materialize. But then when Connor made his move, I was able to give him a little shot to get him down the track, which kind of kept Alexander a little occupied with blocking his run. So then I had a huge run, and I was able to kind of get it at the end there. But completely unexpected. I was just hoping to click off laps and get out of here unscathed to try and get used to sim racing again because it's been so long. But that was a ton of fun at the end.
It's funny enough, we talked a lot tonight about some of the drivers making, their Winter Series debut for the year. So were you. So 1 for 1. Pretty solid. You talk about really not knowing what was going to happen on the restart, but clearly you guys knew or had a hunch about what was going to happen with that fuel strategy, right? A caution flag late in this race. Everybody dove down to the pit lane, wanted to get serviced up at that lap number 64 incident. You and 4 others did not, 5 total. And then even with another opportunity, decided to stay out. It pays off because you 4 finish 1, 2, 3, and 4. Just tell us about that decision.
Yeah, I was actually going to pit, and then Alexander sent me a PM that's asked me if I was good on fuel, and I was like, well, I guess I think I am. I don't have my fuel calculator up, but I thought I was, going to be pretty close because me and him had been saving that entire run before. I think with the idea that we would either stay out or take less fuel on the next stop, and I don't think we would have made it if it had gone green, but it was going to be close. We were only going to be a lap or two short. Um, and then it was actually kind of his PM that gave me the little nudge to actually just stay out and roll the dice and take the track position. Because just with the way the restrictor plate racing is in the Xfinity car, you need that track position at the end. Otherwise, you can get blocked in. So it was worth the risk, even if I ended up being more than good on fuel. But even if it was close, to try and get that track position just to see if we can make something happen. And we did.
Always nice when it works out that way. 4/1000ths of a second for your 3rd career win in RealSimRacing, to first in 8 starts in the Winter Series. Agnell, it's good to have you back. Congratulations again. We'll let you jump out of here. Before we do, as always, the sponsors and the shout-outs and all those good folks who makes it happen for you.
Gotta give a shout out to A51 Pro. Like I said, I've been away for the past couple months, but now with the Daytona 24 and Road to Pro season starting back up again, it's going to be a busy time for us. So got to shout them out, and I'm looking forward to a good season there. And then to you, Evan, for running this league. I really missed running on Monday nights the last 2 months while I've been gone. So I'm really glad to be back, and I'm looking forward to the rest of the Winter Series. I hope I can make the next 2 starts, and then for the Cup Series as well. I think it's going to be a good year.
Looking forward to having you with us, Agnell. Appreciate you being a part of RSR. Congrats on the win, and we'll catch up with you soon.
Appreciate it, Evan. Thank you.
The race winner tonight from Talladega in the SimSpeed Shop 75. Agnell Phillip gets the race win here tonight in thrilling fashion. Flip side of that is what was a great night for Alexander Russell. Nolan led the most laps, clocked in 30 laps led. He just needed 1 more. You're standing by with the driver who comes home in 2nd place tonight.
And indeed, I am. So Alexander Russell joins us on the other end of what has got to be one of the most memorable photo finishes in some time. Alexander, 4/1000ths of a second is the margin of victory there. How does that feel to be losing a race by just such a fine margin?
There's not much to say, but we were that close. Everything almost played out the way I wanted it to. I saw the run coming off of turn 4 from Connor, and just drag race to the line. If only the start-finish line was moved to the center of the tri-oval like they talk about on TV.
And of course, one thing that I think was very notable about that finish is, unlike what a lot of other drivers would have done, you did keep it clean throughout all of that. Didn't have any bumping or rubbing. You kept it all the way clean to the line. Did the thought of putting him in the fence, though, ever come to mind as he pulled alongside?
It definitely did. I was thinking coming to the line, well, I mean, it's for the win. I got to try something, but I wanted to keep it clean because I got a lot of respect for everyone here in this league. We ran so many laps under green, and that's definitely not something everyone can say.
And well, we look forward now to how the rest of the season could play out. The next race up is at the Lucas Oil Raceway. And of course, that is a track that can provide a whole other level of chaoticness that very much unlike what we see at Talladega. But I think we all know the kind of chaos that we would be referring to. What's your thoughts coming on over into the shortest track on the winter season?
I think my whole thing is try and stay on the lead lap. I would say my strength here is the super speedways, but I'm working hard off the track to try and get better on the short tracks and intermediates. But hopefully there's a little chaos to where I can sneak through and maybe get another podium.
Well, fingers crossed, then you show that you're capable of getting those podiums here at Talladega. So I have to just say, best of luck next week at Lucas Oil Raceway.
Thank you very much.
Our second place runner Alexander Russell joined us up here in the broadcast booth and going to continue to move on down to the podium. And I'll pass this one off to our insights reporter, Thomas George. You're standing by with our third place finisher, Connor Horn.
That's right. Connor Horn, who started 31st tonight and laid in wait until the very end here. My friend, I have no words for what we just witnessed. What was it like just driving through all that chaos and being able to save that much fuel, get to the end there? You got a copy, Connor?
He's speechless, Thomas. He's with us. There are no words.
No, I don't blame him, but we'll see if we can get him to get some words out here in a minute. But wow, Evan, I don't know what to make of this one. I mean, we had it all. We had a championship veteran and Andrew Freenach, money shifted, and it happens to the best of us. I mean, you saw me do it at Pocono at 10 laps in, but I'm not half the driver that he is, and I never expected that to happen. That gives Lariah a nice shift in the points. You know, both the top three all separated by less than 20. So between that alone and then everything that happened in this race, I don't have anything left, I don't think.
Yeah, I mean, there's two stories to take out of this, right? One is the race itself, an incredible finish, and then the second, of course, are the championship implications that are, a ramification of this race. We go from, a couple of weeks ago, Andrew Freenach was on top of the world. His championship lead had ballooned to 35 points. After tonight, it is down to 13 after Michael Lariah leapfrogs Liam Sheen, and he is now second in the championship. He's only 13 points behind Freenach. Sheen does pick up. He's minus 17 in third. The last time the points were this close, Thomas, was round 2 in Fontana. So they are on a collision course to give us an incredible championship battle here to end the season. And just wanted your final thoughts as we look forward to the last 2 rounds.
I mean, it just shows that no championship battle is ever truly over, even if the odds seem insurmountable at this. You've got 3 drivers that are right now just going head to head. They're all finishing consistently well or next to each other, essentially, and just a few points makes all the difference in the world. And I don't know what to expect from Lucas Oil. That's a notorious place to make passes on, so I think there's going to be a lot of tempers flaring for that one. And man, I enjoy coming up in the booth and watching it. I've been part of some great finishes between this and Fontana, and oh God, it's just it's great to see good racing like this.
Lucas Oil under the lights. Last year, one driver had 28 incident points in that race. That race also had, I'm going to double check the numbers, so I say it right here, Nolan. That one had 13 cautions. And by the way, was won by Andrew Freenach. So if that doesn't spice things up, right? Andrew's going to be looking for another one there, and he desperately needs a win. Bad luck last week at New Hampshire. Good luck tonight. Bad fortunes, of course, with the money shift that took himself out of this race after seemingly going to be finishing ahead of his championship counterparts. And we'll talk points again in a second. First, let's rewind. This finish, great run, right? I mean, we expect excitement at Talladega, but truly, I think an awesome finish. And you heard it there from Alexander Russell, right? For all of the controversy and the drama that came out of last week, right? With the contact that ended the New Hampshire race, we saw a great finish here today at Talladega that finished clean and super super impressed with what the drivers put on track there at the end.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, at any point, Russell could have put, Agnew Phillip up and into the outside wall. And, maybe it would have caused Russell to win. Maybe it would have caused him to lose, though, by getting turned around himself. As a result of that, you never know. You could have had Connor Horn win or somebody else win. But that clean finish and the fact that Alexander Russell had decided that he was going to finish this race out clean without any controversy is what netted Agnew Phillip that race win. But I love to see that sort of thing, right? Because that is the type of racing that we want to see. Close, hard, aggressive, yet so respectful as well. It has to be one of the best sights you can possibly see on the racetrack on the iRacing service. And as we take another look at it here, I mean, it is just absolutely phenomenal, the type of racing that we were able to see, especially right at the end there.
Yeah, I mean, forget the fact that if the start-finish line was in the tri-oval, it would have made a difference. If the start-finish line was 5 feet closer to the tri-oval, it would have made a difference here tonight. And, such an exciting finish. And listen, nobody would have blamed him if he rubbed him into the fence a little bit, right? I probably would have done that if I was behind the wheel, but also, I don't know if I was driving, Alexander Russell's car, if I would have felt like I would have needed to, because I didn't think that Agnew Phillip was going to get there. That last burst of speed came out of nowhere, and that goes to show us, yes, we have an overarching championship fight, right? But none of the top 3 guys in the points finished in the top 20 tonight. So even with that totally removed, we can still have an awesome race. And of course now, 13 points is Andrew Freenosh's advantage, headed into another sketchy, aggressive, rough-em-up racetrack in Lucas Oil next week.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, you talked about it earlier, the fact that Lucas Oil Raceway is one of the shortest tracks that we're going to be going to in this 2021/22 Winter Series season, and it is a track that can provide some carnage in of itself. I've had my fair share of races there. I've commentated my fair share of races there, and shall we say, I have yet to see one that goes green all the way to the end. 13 cautions you mentioned the last time we were there. Now, that being said, we have seen a lot of tracks where we have seen a lot of cautions in the past, and they have gone almost completely green. Look at New Hampshire, one really early caution, end of lap 1, completely green to the end from there. So I have a feeling we're in for a very good show at Lucas Oil Raceway. Andrew Freenosh just has to hope that he's got a little bit more speed in him to be able to potentially net himself a win and secure that championship going into the final round.
He has worn down that margin for error. It is non-existent now with just 2 weeks left to go in the season. Until then, though, that is it for us here tonight from the virtual Talladega Superspeedway. So on behalf of our entire team at RealSimRacing, for our partners at SimSpeed Shop, and the entire team at RaceSpotTV as well, of course, for your broadcast team. For myself, Evan Pasoko, for Nolan Rempel, Thomas George, and our technical director downstairs, Connery Maddock, I want to thank you so much for joining us tonight and congratulate tonight's winner, Agnew Phillip. We are back in 1 week's time for the penultimate race of the season. That one is on Monday, January the 17th, for the virtual Lucas Oil Raceway. That race and every race of the 2022 RealSimRacing SimSpeed Shop Winter Series can be found exclusively here on RaceSpotTV. Till next time, good night from Talladega, where Agnew Phillip wins it in a thriller.